The cursed queen of Valora, the planet Valora, was full of beauty and power. Tall crystal towers touched the clouds and glowing rivers ran through the valleys. Its people were strong, proud, and ruled by Queen Zariana, the most powerful ruler in generations. But even the strongest queen can carry a deep pain. Zariana had a secret. For many years she tried to have a child. Her doctors used science. Her priests used ancient energy. But nothing worked. She could not have children. And in Velaran law, a queen without an heir was seen as a sign of weakness. The people did not know her secret. But the royal council did. Behind her back they whispered, "The queen cannot carry the bloodline. Perhaps it is time for a new ruler." Zariana heard the whispers, but she showed no fear. She stood tall in her golden armor, her eyes cold and bright like blue fire. No one could see the pain she carried each night when she sat alone on her throne. One day, Zariana visited the Hall of Stars, a place where old prophecies were kept. A priest handed her a scroll sealed in silver. It had not been opened for 1,000 years. She opened it and read, "The fire shall fade from the queen's blood until the stars fall and a child of earth walks among us." Zariana's hand shook slightly. Earth. She had heard of that planet, a small blue world far away, home of the humans. The royal priest called the prophecy a myth. The council laughed at it. But Zariana could not forget the words. And then, something strange happened. A loud alarm rang through the palace. Guards rushed to the queen's chamber. "Your Majesty," said General Vorkan, "an unknown object has entered our sky. It crashed in the ice plains. We believe it is a ship." Zariana narrowed her eyes. "Take me there." Hours later, the queen's ship landed in the frozen plains. Snow blew across the ground. The sky was dark, filled with strange lights from the crash. In the center of the crater lay a small round pod, human technology. It was badly damaged, smoke rising from its sides. Guards surrounded the pod with weapons ready. The door opened, slowly with a hiss. Inside was a man. His face was pale. His body was covered in cuts and burns. He was unconscious, barely breathing. "Is he alive?" Zariana asked. A medic scanned him. "Yes, my queen, but weak." Zariana stepped forward. She looked at him closely. She had never seen a human before, not in real life, only in old records. He looked fragile, and yet something inside her stirred. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand. And then, it happened. A warm pulse of energy moved through her body, soft, but powerful. The snow around them melted slightly. Her heart beat faster. The old pain in her chest faded for just a moment. The guards looked at each other in shock. They felt it too, the energy shift. Zariana turned to her commander. "Bring him to the palace, care for him. Do not tell the council. Not yet." In the days that followed, the man slept in the queen's private medical chamber. Her healers worked day and night. They discovered his name, Jackson Reed. He was a captain from a human starship, but no one knew how he ended up near Valora. Zariana visited him every day. She watched him in silence. Sometimes she spoke to him while he slept. "They say I am cursed," she whispered once. "But when I touched you, I felt something change." The palace began to fill with tension. Rumors spread. Why was the queen protecting the alien? Why did she visit him so often? Council members grew suspicious. One of them, Lord Threx, sent spies to watch her. He believed the queen was hiding something dangerous. But Zariana didn't care. Her heart told her that this man, this human, was somehow connected to her fate. And then, on the 5th night, Jackson opened his eyes. His voice was dry. "Where am I?" Zariana stepped closer, her voice calm. "You are on Valora, you are safe." He stared at her, confused, weak, but grateful. "Who are you?" She smiled slightly for the first time in many months. "I am Zariana, queen of this world." Jackson looked around slowly. "And why did you save me?" Zariana paused. She could not tell him the full truth yet. Not about the prophecy. Not about the child. Not about the strange energy that sparked when they touched. So she simply said, "Because I believe you were meant to find me." The human stranger. The human lay on the royal medical bed, his skin pale and his breath slow. Alien machines surrounded him, humming softly. Queen Zariana stood nearby, watching closely. His name was Jackson Reed, a space captain from Earth. His ship had gone missing weeks ago. No one knew how he had crossed the dark zone of space, or why his ship had crashed near Valora, but Zariana believed it was fate. Ever since she touched him, her body had started to change. The cold emptiness in her chest, the curse she lived with, had started to fade. Her dreams were now filled with strange images. A child with blue eyes, half human, half Velaran, reaching toward the stars. She didn't know what it meant, but something deep inside her whispered, "He is the one." Jackson woke slowly over the next few days. He was confused, weak, and often in pain, but he was healing. Zariana visited every day, though she kept the truth hidden. She told the council he was just a prisoner, nothing more, but in secret she brought him books, fruit from the royal gardens, and asked him questions about Earth. He told her about the oceans, the cities, the wars, the music, things she had never seen. And in return, she told him about Valora's past, about the old queens, the great wars, and the legend of a child born from two worlds. At first, Jackson didn't believe in magic or prophecy, but he couldn't deny the connection between them. Meanwhile, inside the palace walls, not everyone was loyal. Lord Threx, head of the royal council, watched the queen with growing anger. He believed humans were animals, too weak to be trusted. He had heard rumors of Zariana visiting the human in secret. He feared she was becoming soft. Worse, he feared she was falling in love. He gathered a small group of followers. "She is no longer fit to rule," he said, "and if she carries his child, the throne will be lost forever." They began to plan in silence. One night, Jackson was walking with Zariana in the moon gardens. Glowing plants lit the stone path, and the stars above moved slowly in a spiral pattern. Jackson turned to her. "I've never seen a sky like this," he said. Zariana looked up. "It's called the Crown of Valora. The stars form it once every 100 years. He was quiet for a moment, then he asked, "Why did you really save me?" Zariana didn't speak right away. Then she said, "Because when I touched you, I felt something change in me. Something I thought was lost forever." Jackson looked into her eyes. "What did you lose?" Zariana's voice dropped. "Hope." They stood in silence, the night air warm and full of energy, but someone was watching. From the shadows, a royal assassin stepped forward silently. He raised a small silver blade, deadly and poisoned. He moved fast, but Zariana was faster. She turned, her hand glowing with power. A blast of energy struck the attacker and sent him flying. Across the garden, guards rushed in. "Protect the queen!" But Zariana wasn't hurt. She stood over the attacker, eyes glowing. "Who sent you?" she demanded. The assassin was silent, but Zariana already knew. She looked at Jackson. "It's begun." That night, she summoned General Vorkan, her most loyal warrior. "I want extra guards at all gates. No one leaves the palace without my order." Vorkan nodded. "As you command." Then Zariana did something no queen had done in 1,000 years. She brought Jackson into the Hall of Memories, a sacred place only royals could enter. Inside, the walls glowed with ancient writing. Zariana placed her hand on the central stone. It lit up. Jackson stepped forward. The lights grew brighter. The wall began to change, showing images of a past long forgotten, a human man, an alien queen, a child with power beyond imagination. Jackson stared. "What is this?" Zariana looked at him. "This is our history, and maybe our future." Suddenly the lights flashed, a voice echoed from the walls. "The blood of stars shall awaken in the arms of one born from Earth." Jackson took a step back. What does that mean? Zariana's voice was steady. It means you were not an accident. You were chosen. Jackson looked at her. And what if I don't believe in destiny? Zariana smiled slightly. Then believe in me. Outside the palace, Lord Threx sent a signal into space, an old emergency code. It reached a dark planet, orbiting near the edge of Valoran space. There, a powerful warlord received the message. So, the Queen has broken the law of blood, he said, and now she carries something unnatural. His ships began to move. A storm was coming, and at its center was a queen who was once cursed, a human who didn't belong, and a child not yet born, destined to change the galaxy. Secrets of the ancients, the wind over Valora's highest mountains was sharp and cold. Even the sun looked pale in this sacred place. No one had walked the ancient path in hundreds of years, not even queens. But today, Queen Zariana returned, and by her side walked the human stranger who should never have been there. Jackson Reed. They were alone, except for 2 royal guards far behind. The Queen had ordered silence. Not even her council knew she was here. What is this place? Jackson asked, looking at the tall stone towers carved into the mountainside. Zariana's voice was low. This is the Temple of the First Queens. It is older than my throne, older than Valora's cities. It is where all truths are kept. The doors opened by themselves as she stepped closer. Inside, a strange warmth filled the air. Crystals glowed. On the walls, and a faint humming could be heard, almost like the beating of a heart. Jackson looked around in awe. Your people built this? Zariana shook her head. No, we discovered it. Just like the prophecy. Jackson followed her into a chamber filled with floating stone tablets. In the center stood a circular pedestal. Zariana placed her hand on it. The floor lit up with blue energy. Images began to form in the air. Long ago, before Valora had kings and queens, before it had even a name, there was a great war between 2 ancient species, the Velarans and the Scarans. The war nearly destroyed their world. But during the final battle, something unexpected happened. A human ship from Earth, a planet still in its early age, crashed on Valora. Its pilot survived. He met a Valoran warrior princess. They fell in love, and together, they ended the war. The child they had was the first to hold both bloodlines, human and Valoran. He had the power to calm storms, heal wounds, and awaken energy from the earth itself. But he was feared. The old leaders thought he was too dangerous, so they erased his story. They buried the truth and wrote new laws. No outsiders, no mixing of blood, no children born from other worlds. Jackson stood still, watching the past unfold like a dream. They erased him, he whispered. Zariana nodded. They erased everything, but the prophecy survived, and now, it's happening again. Jackson turned to her. You really believe we're connected to this? Zariana looked into his eyes. I don't just believe it, I feel it. Her voice grew soft. Since you arrived, my body has changed. My strength is growing. And there is something else. Jackson waited. Zariana stepped back. She touched a glowing crystal near the wall. It revealed a small, clear image, like an ultrasound, a heartbeat. Jackson's eyes widened. Is that... Zariana nodded. Yes, I am with child. The silence between them was deep and heavy. Jackson sat down, stunned. He had seen many things in his life. War, death, stars exploding. But this was beyond belief. Zariana walked toward him. I didn't plan this. I didn't expect it. But I know this child is important. Not just to me, not just to Valora, but to something much bigger. Jackson looked up. And what do you want from me? Zariana hesitated. I don't want anything, but I need your trust. Jackson stood, slowly. You have it. They stood face to face, 2 souls from different worlds, brought together by fate. But far away, in the royal capital, danger was growing. Lord Threx had taken control of the royal council in the queen's absence. He told the nobles that Zariana had gone mad, that she had broken sacred laws by protecting the human. He showed images of her entering the sacred temple with Jackson. She must be removed before she brings destruction to us all, he said. The council agreed. Threx sent a coded message to the outer colonies. Prepare for the fall of the queen, he wrote, and bring the shadow priest. Back in the temple, Zariana and Jackson walked deeper into the mountain. They entered a dark room filled with mirrors. Each mirror showed a different future. In one, Valora was burning. In another, their child stood alone. In a third, peace and light filled the land. These are possible outcomes, Zariana said, but only one can come true. Jackson pointed to the peaceful one. How do we make that happen? Zariana turned. By surviving. Suddenly, the temple began to shake. Alarms rang across the mountain. Guards rushed in. Your Majesty, enemy ships have entered our skies. The capital is under attack. Zariana's eyes flared with power. Threx has made his move, she said. Jackson looked at her. Ready. Then, let's make ours. They left the temple and entered the queen's ship. As it lifted into the sky, the stars above began to twist, and deep within Zariana's body, a new heartbeat pulsed stronger than ever. Half human, half alien, a child of prophecy, a child of power, a child of war. Valora in crisis. The city of Elthar, Valora's capital, had once shone like a jewel among the stars. Now it burned under a sky full of smoke and lightning. The queen had left for only 3 days. In her absence, the royal council, led by Lord Threx, had taken control. They declared Zariana unfit to rule. They spread lies that she had broken the sacred laws and, worse, carried an alien child that would destroy their world. Panic spread fast. Riots broke out in the lower cities. Temples were vandalized. The people, confused and frightened, turned against their queen. And above all, a dark warning was whispered in the streets. The blood of the queen is no longer pure. In her skyship, Zariana watched from above as flames rose from her city. Jackson stood beside her, silent, his fists clenched. They've turned your people against you, he said. What will you do? Zariana didn't answer right away. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with silent rage. I will take back my throne, she said, but not with fire. Not yet. Jackson nodded. Then how? Zariana looked down at her hands. The skin glowed faintly. Ever since she became pregnant, her powers had begun to change. They were stronger, sharper. But something else was happening, too. She was hearing voices, soft, ancient whispers in her dreams. Sometimes they warned her. Sometimes they begged for help. In the royal palace, Lord Threx stood before the throne. He had replaced the royal crest with his own. Guards loyal to him lined the halls. Beside him stood the shadow priest, a hooded figure from the Dark Order long banned by the old queens. The queen has fallen, Threx said to the nobles. Her rule is over. The prophecy is poison, and the child must not be born. The shadow priest spoke in a voice like wind through bones. A hybrid child will tear the barrier between worlds. It must be destroyed before it takes its first breath. They all agreed. A secret mission was sent to intercept the queen's ship and kill her before she reached the city. But Zariana had expected this. She changed her ship's course and landed in the ruins of the Starforge, a forgotten fortress from Valora's first age. Few remembered it. Fewer still dared go near it. Jackson looked around as they entered the dark halls. What is this place? Zariana answered quietly. The last place my ancestors hid before they built the palace. This is where the first queen gave birth to the bloodline. The air was heavy with old magic. Crystals glowed from the walls, dim but alive. As they walked deeper, Zariana suddenly stopped. She placed her hand on her stomach. Her eyes widened. What is it? Jackson asked. The child, she said, breathing hard. It's showing me things. Jackson caught her as she fell to her knees, her mind filled with visions, flashes of future battles. Strange symbols and a voice calling her name from the void. Zariana. Protect the gate. She gasped and opened her eyes. The crystals around her glowed brighter. Jackson helped her to her feet. You're shaking, Zariana whispered. The child is more than a child, it's a key. Jackson stared at her. A key to what? Zariana looked at him, afraid for the first time. To something ancient. Something locked away. Back in the city, the people gathered outside the palace. Lord Threx appeared on a floating platform, his voice carried by loudspeakers. Your queen is lost, he declared. She has brought an outsider to our world. She carries something unnatural, but I promise you peace, I promise safety. As your new ruler, I will protect you. But not all listened. A small group of rebels still loyal to Zariana moved through the crowd, whispering her name. And then, a strange wind blew through the city. Clouds twisted above the palace. A low hum filled the air. Suddenly, every light in the capital went out. The entire city fell into silence and darkness. At that exact moment, Zariana stepped out of the Starforge. Her armor was different now, silver laced with glowing veins. Her body shimmered with energy. Jackson followed her, armed and ready. You sure about this? Zariana's voice was calm but firm. They think I'm broken. They think I'm weak. But they have forgotten. I am still queen. As they flew toward the capital in a cloaked ship, she sent a message through the old queen's frequency, one that only true royal blood could use. Her voice echoed across every screen and every device in Valora. My people, you have been lied to. You have been led by fear. But I return not with war. I return with truth. I carry life, not death. And I will stand before you, not as a symbol, but as a storm. Meet me at the palace. Chaos erupted. Half, the city cheered. The other half prepared for battle. Lord Threx ordered the gates closed, but it was too late. Zariana's ship descended through the clouds, glowing with light. The gates blew open, and from the smoke, the queen walked through the fire, with the child of prophecy growing inside her and power no one could measure. Enemies within. The gates of the royal palace shattered as Queen Zariana stepped through the smoke. Her armor glowed with ancient energy, her eyes full of fire. Beside her, Captain Jackson Reed walked silently, his hand ready on his weapon. Above, the lightning danced across the sky. The people stared in silence. Some knelt. Others backed away in fear. Zariana spoke, and her voice echoed across the city. I did not come to rule with fear, she said, but I will not run from it. I am queen. I carry the future, and no man will steal it from me. Inside the palace, Lord Threx watched her from the throne. His face was calm, but next to him stood the Shadow Priest, his robes floating as if touched by invisible wind. His hands, long and thin, glowed with black light. She has come, Threx said. Let her, the priest answered. She brings her own destruction with her. Zariana entered the palace with 20 loyal guards. Jackson followed close, watching. Every corner. The halls were empty. Too empty. It's a trap, he whispered. I know, Zariana replied. They walked into the throne room. Threx stood from the queen's chair. Zariana, he said, smiling coldly. You look changed. And you look smaller in my seat, she replied. The Shadow Priest stepped forward. You carry poison in your womb. Let us remove it, and you may live. Jackson raised his weapon. You'll have to go through. Me? No, Zariana said, stepping forward. You'll go through me. Without warning, the Shadow Priest attacked. Dark energy shot from his hands, hitting the guards. Screams filled the air. One by one, her warriors fell. But Zariana did not move. Her eyes closed. Inside her, something awoke. A second heartbeat. A pulse of light exploded from her chest, sending the priest flying across the room. He hit the wall and dropped to one knee. Threx gasped. What power is this? Zariana opened her eyes, now glowing white. Not mine, she said. Ours. She raised her hand, and the air around her began to shift. Walls trembled. Fire from the torches turned blue. The palace shook. Jackson looked around. Zariana, what's happening? The child, she said. It's protecting me, the shadow priest hissed. Then I will kill it first. He disappeared into the shadows. That night, Zariana held a meeting with her remaining allies in the old war room. We have the palace, but not the people, one general said. They still fear the child. Then give them truth, Zariana said. Let them see the lies of Threx. And the shadow priest? Jackson asked. Zariana's face grew darker. He is not from our world. He is from the other side. A gate, once sealed by my ancestors. He serves something older than hate. Then we seal it again, Jackson said. Zariana nodded. But not yet. We have a traitor among us. The room fell silent. Later that night, Zariana stood alone on her balcony. She felt the child stir again. This time, she saw a memory. Not her own. A baby hidden in darkness. A woman crying. A voice saying, she must never know what she truly is. Zariana gasped and held the balcony rail. Jackson ran to her. What did you see? Zariana looked at him, tears in her eyes. I'm not full Velaran, she whispered. My mother, she was from Earth. Jackson stared. You're part human? Yes, that's why the child survives. That's why the prophecy chose me. I wasn't cursed. I was protected. Jackson touched her shoulder. You were never meant to be alone. But someone else had heard this truth. From the shadows, one of her own commanders stepped out. General Vorkan, her most trusted war hero. But his eyes glowed dark. He was under the shadow priest's control. Forgive me, my queen, he said, raising his blade. Jackson moved fast. He grabbed Zariana and pulled her back. The blade missed by inches. A fight broke out in the queen's own chamber. Furniture smashed. Walls cracked. Vorkan fought like a demon, faster, stronger. But Zariana's power had grown. With a wave of her hand, she created a shield of light. Jackson threw a stun grenade. The general fell, but not before whispering a warning. He knows. The child is the key. The gate is opening. The next morning, Zariana stood over Vorkan's body, tied and unconscious. How many more will turn against me? She asked. Jackson looked at her. As many as it takes. She turned away, walking toward the throne. Then let them come, she said. Let them all come. She placed her hand on the throne crystal. The palace lit up. Alarms blared. Every ship, every soldier, every house on Velora received a new signal. All loyal to the queen. Prepare for war. Far away, on the edge of space, a tear opened between worlds. Dark energy leaked through, and from within, something ancient was waking. Not a man, not a god, but something that feared only one thing. The child of prophecy. The war for the future. The sun never rose over Velora that day. Instead, a red light glowed in the sky, soft at first, then growing, like fire. It wasn't from any star. It came from the rift that had opened beyond the mountains where the sky had torn like cloth. Dark energy poured from it, turning the clouds black and the wind cold. Queen Zariana stood on the palace wall, watching the rift grow. Beside her, Jackson Reed adjusted his armor. Is that the gate you spoke of? Zariana nodded. Yes, the one sealed by the first queens. The one the shadow priest wants to open fully. Jackson glanced at her. And if he does? Zariana's voice was low. Then our world, and maybe yours, ends. Ships appeared on the horizon. Thousands of them. Some were old Velaran warships stolen by traitors, but others were different. Strange, sharp, and alive. Creatures of metal and smoke. They didn't belong to this galaxy. He's calling in the Dark Fleet, Zariana said. Creatures from the other side. Jackson's face tightened. And we're not ready. Then we make them bleed first, she said. As the enemy approached, Zariana activated the royal beacon, sending a signal through every system on Valora, across the mountains, in hidden forests and broken cities. Resistance fighters heard her voice. This is your queen. I do not ask for loyalty. I ask for courage. Not for my life, but for the child I carry, one that belongs to both our worlds. If you believe in a future beyond fear, stand now, the people responded. Ships took off from secret bases. Warriors lit their old banners again. Even exiles returned. One fleet stood against many, but their hearts burned brighter than any fire. The battle began in the upper sky. Red flashes, blue shields, ships exploded like falling stars. Jackson led the ground forces. He moved fast, shouting orders, dodging blasts. Despite being human, he fought like a veteran. No, stronger, smarter. Zariana flew overhead in her skyblade, her hands glowing, blasting enemy ships with ancient energy. Her child's power had made her stronger than ever before, but the Shadow Priest was nowhere to be seen. Until, deep in the palace, alarms rang. A portal opened in the Queen's throne room. From the darkness stepped the Shadow Priest. But this time, he wasn't alone. With him came creatures made of bone and smoke, crawling across the floor, hissing. Zariana turned her ship and raced back. But she was too late. A scream echoed from the palace. Jackson ran through fire and blood to reach the Queen's chamber. What he saw made his heart freeze. The Shadow Priest stood over the throne holding a blade of pure void aimed at Zariana's stomach. "Give me the child," he hissed, "or lose everything." Zariana stood tall, blood on her arm, eyes burning. "I would die before I let you touch him." "Then you shall," the priest said. He attacked. Jackson fired. The blast hit the priest's shoulder, knocking him back. Zariana raised her hand and unleashed a storm of light. Walls cracked. The priest screamed, but he didn't fall. Instead, he laughed. "Do you know why the prophecy chose you?" he said. "Because the child is not meant to save you. It is meant to open the gate." Zariana froze. "What? Your blood, and the human's blood, creates the perfect key. And now the gate is almost open." The rift outside widened. Energy tore through the sky. Suddenly, the palace itself shook violently. Stone crumbled. The air burned. And then, he arrived. A massive shape stepped through the rift. Not a god, not a beast, but something in between. The Ancient One, a being from before time. Sealed away by the first child of prophecy. Now returning. His body was made of shifting stars and endless darkness. His voice was not heard. It was felt. "The child is mine." Zariana fell to her knees, holding her stomach. The child inside her was glowing, not in fear, but in resistance. Jackson ran to her. "What do we do?" She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "We fight, not to kill him, but to stop him from taking our son." The final battle began. Jackson led the defense against the creatures of the gate. Zariana climbed the palace tower to reach the heart crystal, the only thing that could channel her full power. The Ancient One moved slowly through the capital, crushing everything in his path. People ran. Some stayed and fought, and then the child inside Zariana spoke, not in words, but in pure feeling. "I'm ready." Zariana touched the heart crystal. The sky exploded with light. She rose into the air, surrounded by stars, her body becoming a living beacon. The child's power flowed through her. She pointed to the rift. "Go back." A beam of light struck the Ancient One. For the first time it screamed. Jackson called every ship to fire. Missiles, lasers, pure energy hit the rift. The Ancient One reached for Zariana and then vanished into the darkness from which it came. The gate closed, the sky cleared, and Valora was quiet again. Hours later, Jackson found Zariana in the ruined throne room. She was holding a small child, a baby with glowing blue eyes, and a calm smile. "Meet Kyle." she whispered. Jackson sat beside her. Outside, the people of Valora began to sing, not for war, not for victory, but for hope. The rise of new blood, the fires of war had gone out, but the ashes still smoked. Valora was quiet for the first time in weeks. The rift in the sky had closed, the Ancient One was gone, and the creatures of the gate had faded into dust. But the cost of survival was written in every broken street, every burned tower, and every grave. Queen Zariana sat on the edge of the ruined palace wall looking out at her city. Not long ago she was called cursed. Now she was called something else. The mother of the new blood. Beside her stood Captain Jackson Reed, his arm in a sling, his face tired, but proud. In Zariana's arms slept Kale, their child, half human, half Velaran, the child of prophecy. But their fight was not over. Below the palace, the royal council had gathered again. Those who survived. Many of them had fled during the war. Some had fought against her. Others had watched and waited. Now they returned, bowing before the throne they once tried to steal. Zariana did not sit on the throne. Instead, she stood before them with Kale in her arms. "You once feared this child," she said. "You believed he would bring ruin." She looked around the silent hall. "But Kale did what none of you could. He closed the gate. He stopped the Ancient One. And he saved us." Lord Varen, an older council member who had remained loyal, stepped forward. "What is to become of the council, Your Majesty?" he asked. Zariana glanced at Jackson, then back at the room. "It will no longer rule in shadows. From this day forward, the voice of the people will guide this world. We will not repeat the mistakes of our ancestors." The council members exchanged looks. This was new, dangerous, revolutionary, but none dared object. Outside, the city began to change. Rebuilt walls rose where ruins had fallen. Banners of old houses were replaced with the new sigil, a star intertwined with a leaf, symbolizing the unity of two bloodlines. Statues of past kings were taken down. In their place, gardens were grown, living reminders that peace is something you have to plant, not build. But peace had a cost. Deep beneath the palace, in the shadow vaults, Zariana stood alone. She faced the heart crystal, now dim, cracked from the power she had drawn. A voice echoed softly. It was the memory of the shadow priest. "He is the key. The gate is not gone, only delayed." Zariana placed her hand on the crystal. Inside it, she saw a vision of Kale, older now, a teenager, standing at the edge of a cliff. Behind him, a sky full of stars. In front of him, another gate, a warning. She pulled her hand away. "The threat isn't over," she whispered. Jackson appeared behind her. "What did you see?" Zariana looked at him. "He will face the same darkness we did. Maybe worse." Jackson nodded. "Then we teach him. We guide him, and we make sure he never stands alone." Years passed. Kyle grew faster than anyone expected. He was bright, kind, curious, and powerful. He could move objects with his thoughts, hear whispers from the stars, heal wounded animals with just a touch. Some feared him, others worshipped him, but Zariana made sure he lived not as a prince in a tower, but as a child of two worlds. She took him to the forests, to the markets, to the schools. He played with other children. He learned to laugh, to fall, to rise. And from Jackson, he learned Earth stories, about heroes who were not born great, but became great by choosing to do the right thing, again and again. Kale listened, and he remembered. On his 10th birthday, a strange visitor arrived at the palace gates. A girl, young, silent, with dark eyes that glowed faintly. She said nothing, but when Kale saw her, he walked forward, smiled, and held out his hand. She took it. A beam of light flashed between them. Zariana felt it. Jackson felt it. Even the old priest felt it. "What just happened?" Zariana asked. Kyle looked up at his mother. "She's like me," he said. "But from the stars." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "The prophecy again?" Zariana smiled slowly. No, something new. And so a new age began, not just for Valora, but for the galaxy. Whispers spread beyond the stars, of a queen who broke curses, of a human who rewrote fate, and of a child who carried the future in his blood. They called him many names: the Starborn, the Gatekeeper, the Light Between Worlds. But Zariana called him only one thing: her son, the child who turned pain into hope, the child who was never meant to exist, but was always meant to lead.